to jump right into it. Jon Wedger is a copper who he's been doing basically God's work, I would say, by trying to scream and shout about the grooming gangs issue that is happening in London, in this very city that we are sitting in today. He has been going out, he has been collecting evidence, he has been telling them to do something, but all he's received is threats. Threats to his home, threats to his safety, people saying don't talk about this, cover it up. Only just this weekend, I saw that they're reopening these 9,000 grooming gang cases in our once great city. Now, this is too little too late. I want to jump right in. Jon, thank you so much for joining us. I've also got Pete Barnes, political strategist, in the studio. Jon, let's just get into it. What's been going on? I'm a little bit rattled, to be honest, because we spoke outside earlier, and when I saw the names, I just started shaking.
Well, if you remember on Kevin's show a couple of weeks ago, I turned around and put a challenge out to both the Mayor and to Mark Rowley. And I believe that Mark Rowley, there is a heart in there. I really do. And I appealed to his better nature, and I said on Kevin's show, please do the right thing. And it looks like that might be happening. The Mayor's not, but Mark Rowley seems to be doing it.
Yeah, it does look like it. So basically they've said that they're reinvestigating the cases which involve intrafamilial, peer-on-peer and institutional settings, along with those that do not fit in the common understanding of a grooming gang. And these cases are now being re-examined following a national review into group-based sexual exploitation. So what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that these were sort of brushed under the carpet and now they're being brought back to light?
Yeah, see, what happens is the police is heavily compartmentalised, and when you've got familial and interfamilial, this is where the argument occurs. So the children ordinarily, and I come bearing gifts, and I want to back up my claims with some hard evidence,
pretty morbid
some
gifts.
Tangible evidence. When the children go missing from the care homes, because this is usually the source of you know, the exploitation, they get known as a missing person. So a form gets filled out and off it goes. And it goes, that is a policing unit, the miss per unit. It then gets sort of splintered off. The social services get a copy, and then the child protection unit for the police gets a copy. Now they deal with familial abuse, right? Interfamilial abuse. And then it also gets sent, if it involves sexual exploitation or pimping as it was once termed, it will go to the clubs and vice unit. Now they all should take ownership. They should all come together with a common goal, a common purpose of saving that little kid that's at risk of exploitation or is indeed being exploited. But they do the opposite, they row out of it. So the missing persons unit just stay in the office and shine their chairs. They don't tend to go out. They should really be debriefing the children as to what's happened, what you know, once they abscond. The kids that go missing are all usually subject to a care order, so the child protection team should be jumping in with social services on a multi-agency approach and saving these kids, but they don't. They say that these kids are being pimped out, therefore it's people outside of the family, it's not an interfamilial issue, clubs and vice have it, you know, or the vice squad. So the vice squad turn around and say, well, they're being abused by people outside of the family unit, or they're kids that are subject to care orders. The child protection team can have it. And all they do is legitimately push it away.
That's sick, because honestly, a lot of these kids, as you've explained time and time again, trying to get your voice heard, is that they're in care homes, they're already vulnerable children. It is this sort of exploitation circle, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's really a ring of this. They obviously are there in the care homes, they then get picked up, right? And then they get pimped out. And taken to multiple different locations around London. You know, you talk about ritzy Mayfair restaurants, but before that it would be to builders in the local area or in a certain hotel room in an area. And then after that, the night just goes on and on and on. And the things that you've told me about, even the 14-year-old boy that had AIDS so badly that he died, just is absolutely heartbreaking. And the fact that they would turn a blind eye to that just absolutely baffles me.
Look, we've got many strands to this. This is what they call multifaceted. The kids are a cash cow. From cradle to grave, they make money. So when you've got the dysfunctionality, because 80% of the abuse goes on in the family, a child is at risk of being abused 30 times more likely with the presence of a step-parent.
Right.
And we've got a broken community, so that goes on a lot. Then the state intervenes with protection orders. They get put into the care system. Right, now, there's this grey area where you've got the care homes that are governed by Ofsted and have to do some sort of checking up on them. They're like the arbiters of these places. But there's like these other facilities that take the kids in their latter teenage years, which are sort of like looked after places that aren't subject to Ofsted, sort of ombudsman. And they get, well, back then they were getting up to £2,000 per kid, right, per week.
Right.
So if you've got an average of about 5 kids in there, you're raking in big money, right? And these kids regularly abscond, and they cannot be the most user-friendly children because there's a lot of problems there. So if the kids go missing, usually on a Thursday, and then present themselves back on a Tuesday with loads of problems related to the sex industry, you know, injuries and infections, but also coming down from Class A drug addiction, and they kick off. So the care home can't wait to boot them out again at the end of the week. And these kids leave the care home and they are literally picked up outside the home and taken off. Now, some of these children's homes were actually writing down the numbers plates of the cars that were picking them up.
So they knew about this?
They knew about this. And the police knew about this. But when I inquired in the borough of Haringey with the child protection team, is there a problem with children being pimped out? And I was told categorically, no. There was an officer appointed to look at it, and in the last 2 years, there were none. She went on maternity leave, and again, the 3 areas where I say are failings, there is incompetence, laziness, and then overarching there's corruption.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly what it seems.
I asked for this role, and I got a list of care homes, and I've got some of them written down here, and I rang them up and I took original notes. Right. So the first care home I rang up, and I've got it here, I rang one up and I said, do you lose a kid or children? And they said, yep. They gave me the name of a girl, 15-year-old. They even
this is the concrete evidence, by the way, that Sadiq Khan does not want you to hear. He does not want you to know that this is going on in our great capital city.
We've even got the name of the pimp, and we've got the number plate of the car, and we've got the street name of the guy that was picking her up. I went to the next home. They lose 2. And on it goes, on it goes. So when I say I found 3 kids in 3 minutes, this is the truth. And they were a mixture of girls and boys. So when we look at the Rochdale Rotherham, it's usually white girls. These are girls, boys of every ethnicity, right? And every background. Now, the shocking thing is, after 3 days, I'd found 52 kids. There's one kid's home here.
3 days?
Yep.
It took you 3 days to find 52 children being pimped out on the streets of London?
Yep. There's one here, right? I rang up the manager of the kids' home. Name was Andre.
Right.
And I said, how many children you got, Andre? He said 5. I said, how many of them do you lose to criminality? And I explained, I'm interested in the prostitution. And he boldly told me, we lose 5 out of 6 every week. And it's here in my original notes. I then decided to hold a meeting. So this is circa 2008. And here is the top of it. It's got report, the children at risk of criminal exploitation subject to care orders residing within the borough of Haringey. I then went on and I listed...
Just be careful you don't show the names, but this is...
15 children's homes, and in that I've listed the 6 of the kids that were most at risk.
Right.
Right? And I said, we need to get to work now. I was attacked by Head of Social Services for Safeguarding.
So this is while you were within the Met Police, right?
Yep. I was told, do not go anywhere near it, because they then have to put in 52 emergency care plans, and it's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of effort.
Well, this is what I mean with the 9,000 that they just brought up today. I mean, how they don't have the resources for that. I don't know why. This is just a headline hunting thing, don't you think?
Of course it is.
Empty platitudes, no, John?
Well, the thing is, right, put your money where your mouth is. Now, I want to stand by that as well, because after one of the shows I did with Kev on here, I went out with an investigative journalist and a documentary maker.
Yes.
We went on the street, and within 90 minutes we found a girl from 14 being out there being worked on the street. And by the end of a couple of hours, we had identified the location of 3 girls. One was 12 years old on the streets of the rough part of the East End. And I'd worked in Vice many years. I was quite a seasoned officer on street prostitution. I had never seen so many street prostitutes in my life in one area. And I asked them, do you ever see the police? And they all of them, it was an emphatic no, no.
Well, let's have a look at what Sadiq Khan says to this.
You were asked by a member for an oral update on rape gangs. You never seem to want to talk about rape gangs. If you were asked for an oral update, why can't you just give an oral update and then the clock starts going after that? Because many people wonder why we don't ask additional questions, and it's because we're on the clock. I will ask a question then. Do you believe, Mr. Mayor, that there are grooming gangs now in London?
So, Chair, in London, the vast majority of what we're dealing with is county lines, which involves organised criminal networks moving illegal drugs.
Mr. Mayor, can I stop you? This is the answer you keep giving me. You know what a grooming gang is now. Even you must have picked up on what a rape gang is. Perhaps if I put it that way, you'll understand more.
I mean, what would you say to Sadiq Khan? This man is clearly in denial about what's actually going on in the city and under his watch to innocent children.
He's mocking. That's what he's doing. He's mocking. This is vile criminality, and kids are at mortal risk here. He's not addressing it. People should be jumping in and saying, this stops now. Under my watch, this does not go on. And all he's doing is a seminar in semantics, and he's mocking a good woman who's addressing the problem. Look, listen, it doesn't matter if he was lower down the rank, but he's not. This is the man who's in charge of this city. He's in charge of policing of this city.
Yeah, it's the crime commissioner, for God's sake. I mean, Pete, I want to bring you in here because I know that
was extraordinary, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely. That's why when I started the show and you'd been talking to me earlier, I was sort of out of my body at one point because it really, really upsets me. I get so sensitive to this stuff. It's little children.
It's one of the lines this country has is, you don't mess with kids. Yeah. No matter what the issue is.
Seems like that's not the case.
Yes, and that's why the country is up in arms about this, and it is yet again the phrase found out. This was swept under the carpet, this was made to go away, and more importantly, this was what I call Westminstered away. It was hidden by language, it was devolved into different groups and different sections. There's nobody ever held specifically accountable within, from what I can understand, within the Met for child protective. So it's all this group and that group and that. That is not an accident, that is often done deliberately to spread blame in case something eventually does go wrong.
Well, often the victims are treated like the actual delinquents here, and they're the ones who actually have to foot the blame. Is that something you've experienced when you've tried to get into it?
Yeah, like I said earlier, when I picked one of the kids up, it was 14, on the streets, on heroin, on crack cocaine, in a red light area. She had HIV/AIDS. I put her in the car. My control said, get rid of her. She's got scabies. She'll infect the car. That was her attitude. Now, ironically, because I've been doing this work and now I'm getting national media attention after 2 decades, I've been inundated with survivors, and a girl that was one of our juveniles at risk contacted me and she said, can I meet you? I met with her today and she said I was one of them girls, and I remember her.
Oh my God.
And she said the police didn't care for us. They had no interest in us.
How's she doing now?
She's holding it together and she's very well presented, but it's been an uphill struggle, and she's under counselling and everything else. Now, she showed me a book, and there was a book written called Crack Houses, and it was I don't know, a flying squad detective, or it was an Operation Trident detective at the forefront of the war against drugs. And she said, he writes in this book about the crack houses and these young girls, of which she was one of them, going into these crack houses in Hackney and Tottenham. She said, I was one of them girls. And this officer refers to them as street dogs.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. The young girls in this country especially have genuinely been treated like trash because they are working class. They are, you know, they've always been painted as these renegades. They're the problem. You know, they're troubled teenagers. Don't worry about them. And their voices haven't been heard. And it's only because of this grooming gangs inquiry that now has absolutely sort of been destroyed by Labour. But that's a whole other conversation.
But I've heard of girls have told me of police officers that were meant to be protecting them that have been soliciting them for sex. You know, once they've been taking them into custody. I've heard of people, magistrates, people in the judiciary involved. And I was approached by a senior officer that worked on a very major children's inquiry into Hope de la Garenne, a kid's home in Jersey.
Yep.
And he said the same to me. He was bullied in exactly the same way. They bully us when we whistleblow. They threaten us. What you got to understand, policing is not subject to employment law, so they can do what they want to us, and they do. And they bully us.
Right.
And they threaten us. And he said, John, what you'll find with this criminality, it may well go right to the heart of the British establishment. And I think they're pretty much not far from the truth.
Pete, do you agree with that?
Yes. The way I would phrase it is it's not necessarily that everybody's complicit in it. It is politically toxic, so everybody has looked the other way. And because they've looked the other way, it has got worse and worse and worse. I think what you're describing here is if you interject early enough, you can save these girls.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that is what we take away from it. And what's more important is we have to take away that stigma from the victims. So important, because the way we talk about them, the way the language we use has to change. Otherwise, nothing will get any movement.
And the other thing you've got to look at is when you've got like vice units that deal with prostitution across the board, they will go into the brothels where there's adults that have consented into this, getting away the traffic and coercive under duress element. You know, a lot of the women we dealt with had made a choice to go and work in it as adults. When the police go in, there's a proceeds of crime issue comes in pocket.
Right.
So they can seize assets, and them assets go straight back into policing. And a lot of the girls were foreign nationals, so the police would have to go abroad to take statements, which would mean a business class flight abroad. They would get $110 a day, and sometimes they were going to nice countries, you know, such as Thailand, such as Australia. Right? But when you're dealing with kids from care homes, there's no foreign travel. You're on the street. A lot of the kids are antisocial, they're damaged, they're angry, they're aggressive, and they don't like you. And no one wants to do with it. So I would go into work, and they would say, right, so-and-so, you've got to go to maybe Ukraine to take a statement, you're going off to Thailand. John, you're going to Hackney, you're going to Bethnal Green.
Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I'll take the business.
So,
but you know what? It's ridiculous that it comes down to stuff like business class tickets and sort of, you know, what's the more ritzy path, or the horrible thing you just told me about someone having scabies and not wanting them in the car. This is the disgusting nature and the disgusting side of this sort of thing. And it really, really irks me. I mean, what could be done about this? Is the Met just scared of the truth at this point?
Well, of course it is, because like the senior officer said to me, this will F us past, present and future. I found evidence of some of these girls going back 15 years. So it was going back to the late 80s.
Wow.
They knew about this and did nothing. And it was the same people involved in it. It's organised criminality. And it is, and no one is touching it. And because it needs a proactive approach, if you step away from that proactivity, it doesn't present itself.
That's such a good point.
And it needs
you consistently need the people to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. The minute they stop, everything collapses.
Let's talk to Andrew Lanny, who is the absolute expert on all this and had a great hand in, I don't want to say taking Andrew down, but sort of peeling away the varnish that was on top of him and sort of exposing how craven this man is. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Well, very nice to be with you.
Lovely to have you on. Let's talk about Andrew. I mean, this man has no shame, genuinely. He's actually demanding that the taxpayer fund not one, but two houses for him now. What can you tell us about that?
No, well, he's completely shameless. I mean, both of them are. You know, he knows he's in a strong position. He has an ironclad lease, and he can only go if he's persuaded to go or paid to go. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's ridiculous. No one wants him on the Windsor estate. No one feels that they are justified in having two houses. I mean, Fergie's been squatting with him for years. There's no responsibility for housing her. Her daughters are married to very rich husbands. They have plenty of money. She could easily go there. She's just sold a £3.75 million house. So this is just trying to take the mickey again. And that's what they've done all their lives. They've kind of been able to get away with it. And I hope that the king will be firm with them. William seems to be a bit tougher.
Yeah, he does, actually. I think he had a hand in getting Andrew's emblem removed from the St George's Hall. Well, that's what I hear.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think the public opinion is way ahead of the palace at this moment. They want Andrew and Fergie basically to go abroad and into exile, or indeed possibly, and I think this is a likelihood, to actually be investigated and charged and actually perhaps go to prison for some of the things they've done.
Well, yeah, I mean, even when I think about Pizza Express, Andrews claims that that's where he was. Well, on the unfortunate night that Virginia Giuffre claims that he was at Tramp partying the night away with his sweaty underarms and sweaty hands with her. I do think, oh, wait, £11 million is quite a lot of money for a Pizza Express meal to give to someone that you claim that you've never met. Do you think Andrew will ever be held accountable in a court of law for the things that he's done? Because I actually think the Virginia stuff is just the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot more still to come out. And the two elements to this, the sexual crimes, which are, Virginia Giuffre and there are other victims who I think will come forward. And there's the financial scandal. And I think under the financial scandal, particularly when he was a trade envoy, he could be charged under misconduct in public office. So I do hope that the Met and the National Crime Agency and other agencies will actually now finally investigate these two. And I think it would send out a very strong signal that the elites are not protected, that, justice can be served and people held accountable. Because I agree with you, Virginia Giuffre's book is very powerful. It really brings home the extent of what was going on and the sense of entitlement and arrogance that they had, that somehow they could just do what they wanted. And these were disposable people that they could just, discard. So I do hope that they face justice and the authorities really do go after them. And I think for the sake of the royal family, they have to be seen to be distancing themselves from Andrew. They have to be seen to actually be allowing the law to take its own course. No one is above the law, including members of the royal family.
No, you're right. But apparently, I mean, when you think about the Virginia Giuffre book, one of the most harrowing quotes that I read during the weekend was, Prince Andrew believed it was his birthright to have sex with me. And it's a horrible, horrible quote. But it's also, as I said, harrowing because it shows just how entitled this man really was to these things. I mean, was there a pattern with Andrew towards this? Or was this, do you think this was some sort of one-off rendezvous that he had? Do you think there are other people that could potentially be involved in these scandals that haven't come forward yet?
Oh, yes. I mean, Andrew slept with thousands of women, and some were trafficked and some were voluntary. I mean, there were a lot of society women who were very happy to have a notch on the bedpost with Andrew. But, we've got to remember that Andrew, in effect, ordered her off a catalogue. There was a book with photographs that was passed around, and he picked her and she was brought. And then he made these extraordinarily crass comments about how she was sort of the same age as his daughters. This man is appalling, and I'm glad that he's finally been called out and is having to take some responsibility for the way he's behaved.
I mean, you spoke to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was about 3,000 people, and then 300 ended, well, so 300 ended up giving you...
Yes, 3,000 I approached.
Yes, so you approached 3,000, 300 ended up talking to you. I mean, what were some of the most harrowing things about Andrew that you heard from them, or that people said to you?
Well, I mean, I was shocked pretty much every day. I mean, just the brazenness, the sense that he could get away with this. I mean, he would go on an official visit, for example, to Thailand, paid for by the taxpayer, and he would bring his mistress with him to sit in the car at official functions, and he would go through 40 prostitutes in 4 days.
Oh my God.
But I think the thing that I found very shocking was clearly there were a lot of people enabling him and protecting him, and that included, I'm afraid, the Queen. And, this problem should have been dealt with years ago. The palace have only themselves to blame that it's now kind of arisen. But, he was allowed. The ambassadors turned a blind eye, politicians turned a blind eye. He was... protected all the way through. People complained to the Queen and nothing was done.
Well, he was Mummy's favourite, wasn't he, Andrew?
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
yes.
he was Mummy's favourite, and I think that's why they turned a blind eye for so much of his weird proclivities.
Yes, well, exactly, and a bit like Margaret Thatcher with Mock Thatcher. I mean,
yes,
these women who you think are going to behave very honourably actually have this blind spot with their sons, and she colluded with him, and there were things being shut down. We have to bear in mind that ABC television could have run a big profile on Andrew and Jeffrey and Epstein years before the scandal broke, and ABC backed off after the palace said that they wouldn't have access to the royals for interviews in future. future. But, you know, in the space of those 3 or 4 years, many girls were abused as a result of that. So, you know, they have to take responsibility for the way they behaved. And they're now trying to distance themselves. The Queen has now been blamed by King Charles. But the point is, King Charles also knew what was going on and did nothing. And the feeling, you know, is that as long as you're not caught, we'll just hope the problem will go away. And when it arises, we'll kind of deal with it and hope the public can be satisfied by some half measure. And the public are not satisfied. I think they really do feel that elites are getting away with some pretty bad behavior.
Well, do you think that he'll be forced to move out? I mean, this ironclad of his stately home. I mean, this ironclad agreement, I was looking at some of the details, and apparently Beatrice and Eugenie are actually attached to it. So if he does keep it, then they will in effect get it. And that's part of his reason for trying to hold on to it through that ironclad lease that was made during the Blair years, which is also quite an interesting fact in itself. Is there anything that can be done to try and unpick this and get him out there? Because I just don't think optically, I mean, I know a couple of the other host, Kevin, who you know very well, sort of is like, well, there's no issue with him living there, whatever. And I do get that. But in my opinion, someone who has done this done horrible things to many people, but also just been casually abusive to many staff members, etc. That's all allegedly. But, you know, he's just a terrible person. Should he be living in the lap of luxury at taxpayers' expense, effectively?
Well, to be fair, he's not living at taxpayers' expense.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yes, you're right.
He was given a very cushy deal, which wasn't offered elsewhere. But he has
trying to dress that up for the audience. But you're right. Yes.
but no. The optics look terrible, and which is the reason why Charles is very keen to get him out. And I mean, I think he will. It's all transactional. He will get him out. The question is, how much will he have to pay, and what will the deal be? But I don't think any of the royal family want either Fergie or Andrew on the royal estate. I mean, pictures of them driving around. They want them abroad and out of the way, in exactly the way that Duke of Windsor was sent abroad. And I think some deal will eventually be done. You're absolutely right. He has a lease till 2078. He's very keen to pass it on to his daughters. But, you know, they are themselves under investigation for some of their charitable and business activities. They're not untainted by the parents. So I think that in the end, you know, they will eventually have to move abroad, probably to somewhere like Switzerland.
I know Fergie was trying to get her residency there. I think it was earlier this year.
Well, I mean, years ago, she was going to move there for tax reasons. So, you know, that would be a good reason to go there. The children were going to go to school there. And I think what the royals want is them out of the way. They are creating huge reputational damage to the royal family. And they're doing, you know, they are undermining the good work the rest of the royal family do. And I think William realizes that. Charles is, I think, coming round to that. It is
a little too late, you know. I do think this will be a bit of a stain on the King's legacy, to be honest, his inability to act quickly. I can't believe that it had to get to the point of this book being published by Jeffrey, which I believe was really the final straw for the King to say, no more, Andrew. I mean, even up until a couple of weeks ago, he was attending funerals publicly and trying to cozy up to William. Do you think the King's reputation will be tarnished by this?
Yes, I mean, I think, you know, it's you know, in the way it slightly overshadowed the last years of the Queen's reign, it's certainly going to overshadow Charles's reign, which is not going to be long. You know, William will come to the throne quite soon, I believe.
Yeah, and he hates Andrew, that's for sure.
Once this sorted. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the shameless behaviour of the Duke and Duchess of York at the funeral of the Duchess of Kent really, I think, changed public opinion. They could see just what a bunch of grifters and how shameless they were. Jeffrey's book, I think, has been a game changer, absolutely. I mean, I think it's wonderful that in some ways, from beyond the grave, she has had her final revenge and really brought home this very sleazy way that he operated, and others. I mean, other names will emerge. I think that the King has taken action partly because he's worried what else may emerge, and there is a lot more to emerge. I mean, this is not the end of the story.
No, you're right. And actually, it's a great pairing to read both you and Virginia's book together, actually. Your book Entitled and then Virginia's book Nobody's Girl, because actually actually, when I was thinking about it, the accounts of Andrew mirror each other, and you can see the one person kind of come together. I know that's a little bit vague, but it's interesting because, you know, you think, oh, maybe Virginia's come up with this confected version of him that she has in her mind, having only basically been his sex slave. But you can see that he acted like that towards a lot of other people in his life. So the books really do complement each other, and even Tina Brown's Palace Papers has a very similar portrayal of Andrew. So it has been this sort of gradual character assassination of the man, and now there's no way back. I mean, I was reading that potentially he might move to Abu Dhabi because someone's offering him a palace there. I think he did have a place in the Middle East at one point or another. Correct me if I'm wrong. Luckily, I'm with an expert.
The royal family there have offered him a palace in Abu Dhabi, which is constantly stocked, ready for him to go.
Right.
And he often stays there. He goes to the UAE quite a lot. But I think he wants to be close to his children. But the Middle East would be an obvious place. I mean, clearly the press there is restricted. There would not be the criticism he gets here. He would have some good weather. He could play golf. There'd be a ready supply of young women for him. It would be a pretty attractive life for someone like him. So, I mean, he's got lots of options, and this is why I think that the king needs to be quite tough. But it is extraordinary that you know, we can't get rid of him because of this lease, and he has no shame. He's going to stick in there as long as he can. It's all transactional, and he's going to hang out for the best deal he can get.
You're so right, and you're so right about the Middle East. The Middle East is really one of those places where royalty is treated in a very old school way, you know, no questions asked, no accountability given. I think it's the perfect place for him to go and, you know, go on his escapades and everything. But I also don't like the idea of him just chilling and playing a bit of golf and living a very peaceful lifestyle after hearing all the things that he allegedly did and all the people that he crossed and all the lives that he ruined along the way. It just doesn't make me feel comfortable. I just really don't think that the royal family is doing enough to bring this man to account, and it's actually revealing their true colours. It shows that it's always family first and country second, or at least in this case it absolutely is, and it just leaves a really sour taste in my mouth, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I can understand. I mean, and that's feeling in public opinion. I do think that they will perhaps bite the bullet and they will throw him under the bus.
Right.
They can see that the reputational damage he's done, and I think they will want to distance themselves. And I do hope that the authorities will actually pursue some of these investigations. They will bring charges. And I think if they do so, there's a very good chance that both he and Sarah Ferguson may well go to prison.
Wow, that's a revelation. I mean, but that leads me to my last question. You always give me goosebumps, Andrew, with your revelations. Genuinely, I'm a bit baffled by that, but I think that could be the case. Look, Andrew and Fergie, they kind of know where the bodies are buried. Is this restricting the royal family from saying, okay, I'm done with you, shutting the door, not talking to you ever again, you're out of this family? Do you think, because I'm thinking, okay, if Andrew's out on his own, is there going to be some sort of book deal that someone tries to give him to then go and lay out all the dirty laundry of the family? Something Harry very happily did when he was out on his own and needed to gather his own money. Is that something you could see happening?
Well, I mean, that's the worry. I don't think Andrew will do it. I mean, I think there's a possibility that Fergie will do it, and she won't do it directly. She will do it through some third person, a sort of Andrew Morton or Omid Scobie figure.
Yes.
I think also, I mean, you know, she has a lot of skeletons in her own cupboard that the royal family know about, and they could well start leaking those stories. I think there's also the danger that people won't take anything she writes very seriously. And of course, they're the daughters. And I think the royal family could well say, well, if you do this, we could make life very difficult for your daughters. I mean, we'll take away their titles. We won't have them to Sandringham at Christmas. You know, if you really want to kind of make sure they're okay, then you will kind of be well behaved. So I think there's pressure on both sides. But, you know, the daughters may well be thrown into the royal family anyway. William has talked about just the direct succession having titles. And if Beatrice and Eugenie don't feel that they have any allegiance to the institution itself, then they may be quite happy for the mum to dish the dirt. So you know, these are dangerous moments for the royal family.
22-year-old man who is an Afghan national who came here on a lorry in 2020, was granted asylum then 2 years later in 2022. He is the suspect who has now been arrested. That is what we know thus far. If we get any more updates, I will keep you abreast of this. But yeah, I mean, very powerful words from Wendy, that local resident just now. I mean, I feel like obviously you do all the behind the scenes research on this, but to hear that, I mean, does that just affirm what you're doing is right?
Well, yeah, I think the thing that really hit home with me was when she was talking about her own encounter with an illegal migrant and the sort of sense of despair and the shadow that has fallen over the community. And, you know, it's that sense that doesn't appear in the crime stats. So when you hear people like Sadiq Khan or Fraser Nelson pointing at charts and saying, oh, look, crime in London is down, they're not living every day on these streets. They're not having those micro interactions that really sort of shape the way you view society, maybe put a bit of fear into your belly before you go out and wander on the streets. You know, I'm not from London, but where I am from the north, we've got a similar situation where sort of, you know, the street corners are just full of large groups of men. You know, there are stories of sort of incidences taking place, and it all seeps through into the way you view not just your street, but the town and your general sense of engagement with civic life. And I think actually it goes to a bigger point that this asylum crisis is really tearing at the very, very fabric of the social contract, tearing at the way that people view their relationship with the state, because the state clearly isn't keeping them safe. The number of asylum applications that have just been waved through in recent years without really any due diligence being done makes most ordinary, normal thinking people look at the deal they're getting from government and think, these people aren't on my side. They're really not on my side. They're doing everything they can to effectively ignore my concerns, throw my money at this situation, all for this pursuit of kind of feeling good about themselves and upholding arcane notions of international obligation. I think it's time that we just start putting the people of this country first. I think the asylum system now has been so overswarmed in recent years, we just have to have a complete freeze on all future applications, because, you know, clearly some bad people are getting through the net as well. This is an individual that we literally said, we will grant you asylum, you are safe here now, welcome into our warm embrace. And then this is how he has turned around. And it's not just this chap as well, of course. There's another asylum seeker that has recently been convicted of sexually assaulting 3 women. There's an endless barrage of this stuff now, the Bel Epping Hotel as well. This is at a breaking point, really. And I think, really, unless politicians take a dramatic action, rather than trying to micromanage the situation and manage community tensions, there is going to be a huge electoral backlash over this Labour government, and frankly they deserve it.
You're so right, and I mean the civil war was mentioned in the segment beforehand. I mean, she's not wrong, and she is living in that community, and if that's how she's feeling, then those emotions are valid. Now, I'm not obviously saying that we're going to go into a civil war or anything, and I will just give the government some flowers to say, hey, they did actually say the immigration status of this guy pretty quickly off the bat, but that's only because of past incidences where we've had to come to our own conclusions about who people are.
Well, exactly. You can't convince me they actually wanted to give this information. They knew speculation was started. And it's actually a day later that we've only learned about this as well. There was not an announcement after the event had happened as well.
Well, I was receiving videos last night and I was thinking, oh God, is this some sort of fake news thing? Because I'm not seeing it anywhere covered. And you're right, it's because they clearly want to stall this information from us, or that's what it seems. I mean, do you feel safe in your community? 0344 499 1000 is the number. I wanted just to quickly talk about this charity, because this kind of goes into everything that we've been talking about this evening. It's being bankrolled by the government using £385 million of taxpayer cash in order to put a positive spin on migration to schools. Can you tell me a bit more about that? This seems to be sort of your life's work going after this charity in a good way.
Yeah, so this charity has one of the biggest asylum contracts. It effectively runs the phone lines so that those migrants in hotels, if they don't like the food that's on offer one day or their bed's a bit uncomfortable, can call up 24/7 and have a bit of a moan, and then on the other end of the phone you get a sort of...
Are you joking?
This is genuinely, I mean, this is genuinely what the hundreds of millions have been spent comment on. You've got a well-meaning kind of left-wing activist going, oh, that's so awful, we'll pass it on to the Home Office. So this is a charity that nominally is meant to be performing government functions. That is its intended purpose, but it has actually been, in recent years, massively engaged in campaigning against any measures to actually bring control to the Channel crisis. So it was at the forefront of the campaign against the Conservative Party's Rwanda plan. It was leading charges against that, saying it was inhumane. And of course now, as we're seeing, it's sort of adopting hobbies for itself and sort of extracurricular activities and doing all it can to really indoctrinate children. Effectively, that's what this is, you know, encouraging them to sort of see that, you know, this is a nation built on immigration and they should be writing love letters and so forth. But of course, it's not just this taxpayer-funded charity. There's a whole plethora of them. We're sending billions each year to sort of charities that are effectively working to keep our borders wide open. Some are actually doing far worse than this particular instance. Some are actually working with asylum seekers to help them go through the necessary checks so they can go into schools themselves and talk to children. Think about that. There is literally a charity that works with asylum seekers, so takes them into primary schools, lets the asylum seekers address the children one-on-one. I mean, as I said before, these are individuals we don't know anything about, and yet we have activist groups working to get these individuals in front of kids. It beggars belief.
Well, you're right. I mean, I'm not addressing this suspect specifically because I do want to be really careful about that. But I am thinking there are a lot of human rights lawyers that get these people through the cracks, as you say, and on their path to leave to remain or to claim asylum in this country. And I think those people really need to be held accountable when something goes wrong with someone that they've stood up for and invested their trust in. I mean, it does get really ridiculous. And you're right, it's this politicization of schools that we see with trans ideology. We see it with the pro-Palestine group. We see it now with pro-migration. You know, you have to welcome all immigrants, welcome all asylum seekers. I mean, I actually, when I was at school, there was quite a bit of that indoctrination going on already. So I hate to think about how bad it is now, just 5 years down the line, because that's when no, I'm joking. That's not when I was last in school. But anyway, I do think that it is a part of a more dark and insidious way of almost like sort of indoctrinating the younger children of this country.
It's communist theory, really, isn't it? Children are the future. If you can win over their minds whilst they're sort of open and to be shaped, then you shape the future generations of that society. When it comes to sort of talking about immigration in schools, effectively, kids these days are being told downright lies. They're being told that, you know, without immigration, Britain would never have emerged as a country. England, even way back in the Anglo-Saxons, was this kind of multicultural, multi-ethnic mix. They are effectively rewriting our history to suit their own ideological paradigm. And unfortunately, they've been doing it for several generations of people have come through having had this stuff indoctrinated into them. And you kind of see how parties like your party or the Green Party are doing in the polls, especially amongst younger voters. And you realise that actually what we're starting to see is this year-long campaign coming to fruition, beginning to bear fruits. And actually, you really don't know where in 10, 20 years' time these sort of children that have been subjected to such ridiculous nonsense are going to sort of view the world, whether they actually even believe in the nation state at that point, whether they actually even think Britain has in any way been a source for good in history. And I think, unfortunately, they have such a hold through unions, through councils, through all of these kind of individuals that have really done a sort of Gramsci-esque march through the institutions and now control all the levers of power, that you really don't know actually where this society will be steering, because we're completely unmoored from actual reality and history.
Genuinely, it is the truth, unfortunately, when you look at stuff like this and when you look at government expenditure. They do want to indoctrinate our children. I mean, what? I laugh because if I didn't laugh, I would cry.
Well, I mean, how do you think the people of Epping feel? People of Epping Forest, people of Essex? I mean, this, just listening to that little very articulate rundown of what you've just done there, is this really the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? I mean, where do you start to unpick this? We have imported danger to the streets of our country, whether that's your daughter walking to school, whether that's a gentleman walking a dog. You know, you can't make this up. And I feel for the British people because we're saying, what next? It's a case of what next. Every day we wake up, what nightmare is going to be inflicted on our fellow citizens, and where's it going to be? Because 1 minute it's in London, then it's in rural parts of Essex, next thing you know, it's in the Midlands. You know, this is an imported problem that has spread, and it is a national security emergency. Thousands and thousands and thousands of unvetted men, we don't know who they are crossing the channel, and they are coming to a community near you soon.
Yes, you're completely right. And I think people are feeling it more and more on their doorstep when you do see these stories of someone just trying to, basically what I would call a basic British right of walking your dog, or, you know, as you said, walking to school, going to the park, and not actually being able to do that without feeling like you're being threatened by someone who's just imposed in this community. I mean, let's go back to Hadush Kabutu. I mean, Shabana Mahmood has said she has pulled every lever to deport him. I mean, every lever. We didn't talk about giving British taxpayers money to him. We didn't talk about giving him 500 quid and sending him off on his way. It says that he was basically, he basically created a bit of a ruckus on the plane when they were trying to deport him, which just shows what a vile human being he is. And he was saying that he was going to contest it with the Home Office. He was going to contest the decision to be deported. So this is really who had been put in your community. I mean, you've been out there with the women and children that have been rallying against this. Do you think there are more Hadush Kabutus out on the streets? I mean, the Bell Hotel is still alive and well.
Well, of course they are, and I'll say this, every single one of those men could be, because the frank reality is we don't know that they're not, and I'll never as a politician do what some reckless local councillors did in my community and say that, you know, there is no risk to safety, because I wouldn't dream of saying something that's not true. As far as I'm concerned, every one of these men should be treated as though they're capable of doing something horrific. They should not be allowed to leave the premises that they're currently in. They should be treated as though they have broken the law. They should be detained and deported. And the key word is detention. They should not be walking up and down the high street. I don't care who they are. They have broken into our country illegally, and they are not asylum seekers. They may want to be referred to as asylum seekers. The Home Office and all these, you know, champagne socialists in North London might like to say that they're asylum seekers. They're seeking asylum from France in that case. You know, it's fundamentally flawed, that argument. But to answer your question, I love it. Pulled every lever. Can you pull every lever now then, Shabana Mahmood? And can you please control the borders? Pull whatever lever you've got, because as far as I'm concerned, every single day, hundreds and hundreds, thousands every week of unvetted men are coming to our shores. And these men are going into a village, in a town, near schools, and we don't know who they are. And the idea that we have had to pay £500 allegedly to get this man onto a deportation flight, I find it astonishing. First of all, not that any amount of money would even come close to sorting that victim and her family's emotions right now. They must be totally broken over this. And the fact that they don't receive anywhere near financial compensation that they rightly deserve. Because if I was the family, I'd be saying to the government, you have inflicted harm on us, and there is a legal system in this country that enables you to take action on these things. But what sort of weak country can't deport people, but can when it's in the news, only if we pay them a bit of money? And then when they're getting on the plane, they're kicking off. It's like they've been advised, isn't it? It's like he was advised, you kick off, they might make it £1,000. You know, it's embarrassing. So right.
And also, it sets a really dangerous precedent, because now that he's asked for this 500 quid, does that mean that everyone who doesn't want to get deported can then ask for 500 quid? I mean, I know exactly what happened. I know that plates were smashing in David Lammy's office when this news came out, because I know this is the last thing he would have wanted. Optically, this is terrible. And that migrant went through, or sex offender, let's just call him because that's the truth, went through 11 different levels of processing to then get let out. And I think I'm pretty sure he tried to come back 2 different times to say, actually, you know, could I come back? I think this has been the wrong decision. Could you let me back in? And they denied him. They did give him another 70 quid to go on his way from that HMP Chelmsford where he was being held. Now, the thing about this is that it really, really shows that they were desperate to get rid of him. I can tell that what would have happened was he starts kicking off, he starts saying he's going to make another claim, he's going to appeal, he's going to do this and that, and they go, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? 500 quid? Like, is that what's just because we can't have this anymore? Because there was pressure to deport him, a lot of pressure. I think the timeline was Tuesday. They managed to do it by Wednesday. But I mean, do you think, basically Lammy said Kabutu's release was down to human error and has ordered an urgent review and another sort of inquiry into this. How competent do you think this Labour government is for this to never happen again?
Well, you only need to look at how they're dealing with things like the grooming gang inquiry to see that they're completely incompetent, incapable of doing anything when it comes to women's safety. But if you want to look specifically at the finances here for a second, £250 a night it would cost him to be in a hotel. So one can argue he probably saved a bit of money by him being in prison and then by him being deported. Oh no, but wait a minute. I bet you any money we're probably still paying for that hotel room every night whilst it's sitting there in the Bell Hotel empty. But who knows? I'm making an assumption there. But what we do know is that if we start a process where we're paying people like this who are foreign criminals, that's the difference here. One thing being economical and incentivising people to go that are here to save the British taxpayer money. There's some common sense in that approach. There is no common sense in providing a financial incentive for somebody to go and commit a crime, go to prison for a few months and then be released and then be paid a huge sum of money to us, £500, in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, in other countries. It is an enormous amount of money. And I think we are on a very slippery slope if we're going to pay foreign criminals who have entered the country illegally to go home. I mean, seriously, you can't pay people to commit a crime. The only people that should be getting paid are victims.
Exactly, and that is taxpayers' money going into that guy's pocket who basically destroyed this 14-year-old girl's life. Let me remind you, he is a convicted pedophile sex offender who you've just given 500 quid of taxpayer money to, government. I mean, it's crazy, and no one's going to be held accountable for that because they're all just pushing the blame in every which direction. I mean...
Well, I was just going to say, if they've got 500 quid spare every now and then they ought to buy a gazebo for the mums of Epping who will be protesting in this winter until that hotel is closed, because we aren't going anywhere no matter what the weather is. I'd rather see that money spent on British people for proper causes like the mums of Epping, who are trying so desperately to get that hotel closed and have started a national conversation on this very issue. What an insult to, say, a single mum in Epping whose daughter is too scared to walk to school, who's just about making ends meet, to then find out that a foreign criminal has just been paid £500.
Well, it's just like what they said in the court ruling. The rights of the asylum seekers is above the rights of the British people. And I think that that rings true in this very case. Till the very end, this guy's rights have been put above this 14-year-old whose life has been ruined, and the other women involved in that case, to be quite frank. I mean, I want to bring your attention to this other story that happened. This small boat migrant, he was jailed. So he murdered a bank customer. It's come out today. Essentially, he was jailed for the last 25 years, for at least 25 years, for murdering a bank customer at random shortly after angrily complaining about his refused asylum application. He was a Somali national and he paid €400 to travel to the UK last year. Wow, okay, so maybe Hadush Kabutu could get back in and have, 100 quid pocket money to spare given this. He could be seen on multiple CCTV cameras attacking Govinda Singh with a black-handled kitchen knife at Lloyd's Bank. I mean, I was reading this today and I want to get the details correct. This guy was an absolute troublemaker. He had been known by 4 different police forces in 4 different countries, and yet he was still allowed to roam the streets freely and then commit this murder. I mean, it was genuinely an innocent attack on this man. And a court basically heard that he travelled first to Libya from Somalia. The killer was then sent $1,800 to board a boat to Europe. That he sold cigarettes illegally while living in camps in France. This is basically a story as old as time. And in 2024, he was recorded as having smashed a window in a phone shop when he arrived here. So that was just a couple months after. He was then convicted of robbery and assault and for resisting a public official in Italy. He was then given an oral warning in the same year for damaging electricity meters by hitting them with a knife before setting fire to a mattress. So this is a really great guy that we should absolutely have allowed into the country. He then travelled to Germany. So he was basically bouncing, around Europe. I did really just want to read this out because it's an insane story. He was then caught in Luxembourg and he was known for police for 8 alleged incidents. But then he comes here and he murders this poor man. I mean, this is the quality of migrant that is coming across the channel and into this country. When are we ever going to to see a stop to this? Do you think it'll be under Labour?
No, Samara, because of course the Labour Party think these are all dentists and paediatric surgeons, and these are the most talented scientists that are going to send rockets to space, according to Labour MPs. And isn't it ironic that the Standard describe him as a small boat migrant because maybe the penny's dropped that when you're an asylum seeker, that means you're fleeing a dangerous country, and he's had a criminal career in most of Europe. But what worries me is the $1,800 US. Who sent him that? Yeah. Who are sending money to these people to come to this country? Who is sending this money? Where is the money coming from? And why are people prepared to give so much money to people to make that journey to Britain? And I think when you look at some of the things that happen to our country, some of the things they say as they're committing these offences, it's very clear. They don't come here because they love this country. They don't come here because they love our people, our way of life, our culture. They don't come here because they want to respect our women. Why are they coming here? And, it beggars belief that this sort of thing is happening across Europe, and all of these major countries, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, have got intelligence on this guy that somehow they can make it to a high street in Britain. None of those countries are prepared to do the right thing themselves and deport. This is a European problem. And then today, people have got the audacity to not support Nigel Farage with getting us out of the European Court of Human Rights.
I want to talk about that.
The House of Commons today had an opportunity to get the ball rolling on something that I couldn't think of anything more important for our country right now than securing our borders, protecting women and children, making our streets safe again. There was an opportunity to step in the right direction today for Parliament to restore some faith that the British people have lost for many, many decades. And they basically are proud to say they didn't support Nigel's 10-minute bill.
Today of all days
Of all days. And it just goes to show the quality of members of Parliament in this country, not just the current Parliament, which is probably an all-time worse. The quality of politicians in this country for the last decades have let, I'm in my 20s, have let my generation down and all future generations down, because the decisions they're making today are impact tomorrow, and the people in that place do not have a clue, the vast majority, of what is really going on the streets of this country. And that is why the British people, they feel very emotional about this. There was once a time when these were tabloid stories and it was like, oh my God, would you believe it? It's now a daily occurrence.
You're right.
People are waking up. What crap is going to happen today? Who's going to die today? Who's going to be hurt today? Who's going to be harmed today? If we don't call out the fact that this is a daily occurrence, we may be stuck with this government for another 4 years. They have no action plan whatsoever. Their only action plan is inaction. And when David Lammy says he's livid, I tell you what he'll be livid about, and I can speak probably for the Home Secretary here too. They'll be livid that he's actually been deported on a plane tonight. That's what they'll be livid about, because they have campaigned to stop the deportation of foreign nationals under the previous government, signing all these letters. They probably don't even read these letters. It wouldn't surprise me, the quality of our members of Parliament. But one of the most important ministries of state is the Ministry of Justice. And how you can sit in your office this evening, although I highly doubt they work this late, these people. But let's imagine that they are in their office this evening. Let's imagine David Lammy is sitting at his desk. I bet you any money he is not sitting there feeling like he's helped get justice today, when a victim is sitting there scared to see what other prisoners are going to be released, and you've got a man on a plane right now probably being served a nice hot meal on the aircraft too, and all of that, and has been paid to leave the country when he's a foreign criminal.
He's been paid a year's worth of salary in his home country. That guy's just going to be basically whining and dining for the whole year on the British taxpayers' dime. That's lovely to think about. This pedophile sex offender, that's a great ending for him. He's genuinely left the country richer than when he came here. It infuriates me, Jamie. Jeremy Corbyn, he's starring in a Panto. Now, we thought that he couldn't get more unserious, but apparently he could. Apparently there's a X-rated version and there's also a G-rated version, and he is basically playing the Wizard of Oslington. There he is in costume. I kind of wish he had a bit more drag on to cover the weird face there. I mean, what do you make of this? Has politics just become this unserious?
I mean, Jeremy Corbyn has never really been what I'd consider serious. He's one of those faddish, cultish backbench MPs. He should never have made it to the front ranks and run as leader. This is the man who welcomed Hamas, you know, had a photo shoot done, selfies with the terrorists, peace and love. The only thing that I find that I've ever agreed with Jeremy Corbyn on is Brexit, ironically, but then he soon sort of shed those views as soon as he was Labour leader. But look, you know, he's little Mr. Allotment. How big is your marrow? Here he is in a pantomime. I mean, he should actually be one of the witches, right? A pantomime villain. But of course, in Islington, in Oslington, can I just say, it kind of looks, that theatre looks like a penitentiary. Like, he looks like he's in some sort of like prison overalls begging to be released. But, you know, they're going to love it. Everyone's going to flock to it, aren't they? All the sort of, you know, short-fringed lunatics and lumberjack shirt-wearing, big-bearded, beard oil, sourdough munching Egypts are going to be queuing up to go to it. So fine, you know, let's just hope he registers it on his parliamentary expenses.
I mean, you're 100% right. I really would love to know if that Panto's going on tour. Maybe they'll perform something in Palestine for Hamas. They would love to see Jeremy, I'm sure, as a drag queen, or they'd love to see drag queens in general there. I'm sure they're widely accepted. I mean, I'm joined in the studio with Jamie McIver. Jamie, I mean, what do you make of this? You're in politics. Would you do a Panto?
Do you know what? If there was a local cause, I would absolutely sponsor it. I don't think you'd find me do it, but, you know, who knows? But none of the politicians in Parliament, with the exception of a handful, are actually serious about their jobs, clearly. Jeremy Corbyn's clearly a liked constituency MP. Let's give him some credit. He was elected as an independent. Right. That is no easy footing. True. But that said, I despise his views. I despise the sort of people that will be cheering him on in this sort of occasion. And you know what worries me about when politicians start doing this? It just... Parliament and Britain loses credibility. I mean, we've got a government that's horrific, but it's really nice if you've got a country with a really unpopular government, but, you know, the Parliament is, you know, really well respected around the world. You know, we are the mother of all parliaments. But when you just look today at how they behaved over Nigel's 10-minute bill on the ECHR, you can just see we have unserious people. In fact, I think Jeremy Corbyn actually isn't the least serious. I think the Lib Dems are by far the worst when it comes to the ugliness of British politics.
And the Greens.
No, but luckily he's not in Parliament yet.
No, he's not.
Let's not hold our breath, though. But the thing is with Jeremy Corbyn is, as Alex has said, his views are awful. He hates Britain. He hates, I think, Israel. By far the worst parliamentarian when it comes to his record there. And just look at some of the things he said about the IRA, just look at the things that he's said about other terror groups, and what he actually does. He hates on British troops, he hates on British people, he hates on people that believe that our country's borders can be controlled. He thinks all those people coming on boats are going to be surgeons of tomorrow. This is a man with terrible judgment, and yeah, you won't see me in the audience clapping, although if you two are going I might join, but you know, free to crowd.
Alex, will you be grabbing a ticket to Magic Grandpa's Panto?
I would actually go if you want to make it Samara. I would go. Although, you know, every time there's someone, he's behind you, boo, happens, they'd all be looking at us. We'll be sitting at the back of the theatre and everyone's going, oh, it's those two witches from Cork.
I didn't want to say ugly sisters because that would be cruel, but I can imagine a few nasty lefties that would say that about you two.
I actually went to Shoreditch and basically got chased out of there with pitchforks, so I know better. We'll have to wear our burqas, Samara.
No, oh my God, you're right. I mean, it's almost like you want to have he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's a classic liberal lefty. He wants to support all these crazy liberal causes, but then when I see Zara Sultana and the Your Party, I mean, a lot of their factions are quite sort of veering towards Islamist extremism. I wouldn't say that fully, but it is this weird chasm that the Your Party is already having, where it's like, oh, I'm starring in a Panto, but also I'm friends with Hamas, as you said earlier. What do you think about the Your Party? Are they becoming a very powerful force? I mean, I have to say that they have got a lot of members, unpaid at that, but they are sort of becoming a little bit of a threat to Labour, that's for sure.
Well, do you know what? From what I have seen so far, they seem to be just one rung up the ladder from Change UK. Do you remember that ridiculous outfit? I mean, first of all, Zara Sultana launches it, and then Magic Grandpa says no, you know, being the sort of, you know, Me Too movement patriarch that he is. Little woman, shut up, I'm going to launch this, and you'll do as I say. He tries to bring in all the mad Islamists. Then is it going to be called Your Party? Then Zara Sultana puts out a fundraising email and he doesn't like it. And I mean, it just basically looks like sixth form politics, because that's what it is. That is what it is. But the problem is, it is a magnet for people who fundamentally hate the country that they live in. Because, you know, most of these crazy, weird leftists who like their sort of lentils and their sourdough and hairy armpits and smell a bit like a sock that you found down the bottom of your sofa 6 months after it got, you know, disposed there. The problem with these characters is they were bullied at school. They're just sad, weird kids who think that the world owes them something because they're ugly, because they never got a first date, because they never snogged a girl at the high school disco, because they didn't get good grades or whatever it is. They just feel like the world owes them something. And so they go into politics to punish everybody else and punish their country because they think the country has punished them. It's, I'm sorry, you want to look any uglier? Yeah, go on then. Get the short fringe, dye your hair blue, and carry a Socialist Workers' Party placard, because that's really going to bring in the dates. I mean, these people are just, you know, they exist in every single country of society. They're saddos, they're weirdos. So let them all go hang out together. That party is never going to form a government. But
this Iranian national who was removed under the one in, one out deal, he came back 2 weeks later on another boat. He found another couple of £1,000 to give to a people smuggler. And he nipped back over the channel and into the country, and he gave the reasoning that essentially he just didn't feel safe in France. Well, last time I checked, there wasn't a war being waged in France. The only issue with France is that you only get a tent. You don't get a 4-star luxury hotel. So, I mean, genuinely, what to make of this? And also, how dare the government not deport him yet? How dare they?
Yeah, so should we get to the real epicenter of the whole situation with the boats? There are two ways. Language matters here. Labour would like to label these people coming across the channel as asylum seekers or irregular migrants. Reform, and let's say the Conservatives now at least, will label them as illegal migrants. Words matter because they lead to two different trajectories as to how you treat them. If they're asylum seekers, you follow international treaties. You believe that someone somewhere may be fleeing persecution, and we have a duty to process their claim. We have a duty because they may have a right to claim asylum. I'm using the language right to come in and claim asylum. That is the Labour stance. That is the Liberal Democrat stance. That is certainly the Green Party stance, and so on. Reform stance and the Conservative Party stance, let's say those on the right, will say they're illegal migrants, which means they cross multiple safe states. They're not fleeing persecution. They come from the safe country of France, which I would say is safer than most parts of London. And they are paying thousands of pounds to people smugglers as economic illegal migrants who have broken into the country. If that is the case, they are criminals. Therefore, there is no case to be heard. Therefore, it's detain and deport. There is no discussion about hearing their voice. No asylum going to be granted, no indefinite leave to be granted, and you become as hostile as you possibly can, because they are criminals. And so it's these two different trajectories that are in tension with the two different parties. But Labour are standing again in two boats, because what they do is they say, well, no, we want to stop the boats and we want to smash the gangs, but we want to hear their asylum, and they are genuine asylum seekers, and we want to make sure that they're processed properly. I mean, the worst thing that when Yvette Cooper and Shabana Mahmood come on the media round and say we are processing asylum claims at speed, I get scared. I get terrified, because it means they're going to be going to social housing and to welfare.
Oh, correct, and it's just stamp and moved on. You know, they make all these really, really empty statements as well. I mean, Shabana Mahmood has said about this specific migrant who's managed to get in here a second time after being deported, that they're vowing to return him immediately. But he's still in the UK at taxpayers' expense. And then the Border Security Minister said he hasn't gone yet, but he will be removed. I mean, how vague is this? We're asking for people to simply be deported, people who have not just once, but twice broken the law and broken into this country legally, and that's still not happening. I mean, it's very simple things that the British public is asking, or a lot of the British public increasingly so, and it's not being done. I mean, should we trust the Labour government whatsoever to ever do anything about this small boats crisis?
You cannot trust the Labour government because, as I said, they see them as potential asylum seekers, and secondly, they are wedded to international legislation. Because of those two things, we can never, ever trust the Labour government to stop the boats. They never will stop the boats. The French Interior Minister, the previous one, openly said they are coming because of this is the land of milk and honey, incentives.
Yes.
The head of Calais recently also made a similar comment. It is incentives. So if it's incentives, we have to make Britain as hostile as possible. So Andrea Jenkins's plan, put them in camps.
Yep.
A bar of
Friend
soap,
of the
a
show.
bed, maybe a shower, 3 square meals, and suddenly they'll be on TikTok telling their other friends, this is a bad place, guys. Don't come over. Don't pay the thousands of pounds. We're going nowhere. So it is about detain and deport. Look, we deported that Ethiopian guy, right?
Yeah, after giving him
£500, agreed, I understand, but still, we deported him with no returns agreements.
You're right. You are right, though. It does prove that we can deport people if we want to.
Yeah, and there's a pearl clutching about deporting to Afghanistan. Germany are doing it. Afghans are going there back on holiday.
Correct. Yeah. Also, it's like you know, it's mostly men that are not actually in danger from the Taliban. Most of them.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there are people that have different beliefs, and yes, they might be in danger from the Taliban. But also, it's really not. We're full. We really don't have. We don't have space for that at this time. And just look at. We can't talk about it because now he's been charged. But it was an Afghan asylum seeker who went on a triple stabbing.
Yeah.
Just on Monday. So you know. This is where this is at.
I mean, the sense of horror, the sense of desperation and despair, and then everyone looking at Keir Starmer and thinking, where do we turn? We are being held hostage. There is an invasion. Where do we go? What are the solutions? That tension is bubbling so acutely now in the British public that it's starting to really concern me, if I'm honest.
Really, really good point. Let's talk to Janice in Essex. Hi, Janice. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi, and I agree with the man that was just speaking. Put them in the barracks, lock the gates.
There you go.
I'd like to
Got
talk
some
about
support
Andy,
there.
please.
What did you want to say about Randy Andy?
Well, something is Randy now, is he? The worry is, I'm shocked that the patents have been taken away from him. That is wrong, but I think this has got William written all over it because he said,
I think you're right.
I don't want my family tainted by it. Where's he going to go? How is he going to make money? What has the king had to offer him?
You know what, Janice, you raise a really, really good point. I spoke to Andrew Lowney about this just a couple nights ago. I said, look, we know that this guy is money hungry. We know that he's craven. We know that he will do anything for a bag of cash. We know that both him and Fergie. Yeah, Fergie's probably worse. She's worse. She's worse because she's racked up millions of pounds in credit card debts over the years. I mean, genuinely, half of Andrew's struggle and all his dubious friendships were actually to do with Fergie and repaying her debts. I mean, that's actually where a lot of the Epstein stuff came from because he had to go. He couldn't ask Mummy anymore for cash. He had to go over to Uncle Epstein and ask him to pay for things. That is what. So you're right. So, but now that he's out on his own, Janice, you're right.
No, but they've just sold that. She's just sold that £4 million townhouse.
Yeah, so that'll get her across a couple months, but...
No, yeah, but the worry is, I hope that he's put a gagging order on them because we don't want them going out or writing books.
I think Andrew's out of control. I think that what all this kind of literature that's come out about him just in the past year has shown is that the man is completely out of control. And you're right, I think that a book will be shopped around and he will be airing the royal family's dirty laundry. Do you agree with that?
I think this could be Prince Harry on steroids.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So, we've got to put a lid. There should be some kind of non-disclosure agreement, some kind of agreement signed to just say, shut up, please.
And it's worse. He's got nothing to lose now. He genuinely, he's lost everything. So who knows what that potential book will have in it. Genuinely, I am scared for the royal family, and I think that this is almost why the king wasn't sort of so quick to his judgment over this, because I think he was trying to weigh up all the different options of what Andrew could do.